Welcome to our Purim party, Purim 5783. And we wouldn't have Purim if it wasn't for, who knows? Who knows? The evil
Haman.
Haman, exactly. I can't hear you if you're speaking to me, Gabe, because you're mute. If you know any answers, you got to unmute yourself. It's best to keep it unmuted, so this way we could just read it. Just don't talk in the background. And the reason, do you know why we have Purim? We're celebrating a very special time because there was a king. Who was the first king of Israel? Who knows? Saul. Exactly, King Saul. And King Saul was told by the prophet Samuel, God told Samuel to tell Saul to kill all the Amalekites. Now, it sounds like a terrible thing to do, but when God tells us to do something, we need to listen to him because he knows everything, not like you and me. We don't know everything, right, Gabe? We know some things, but we don't know everything. So King Saul didn't listen, and he kept the king alive, King Agag. Boo. He kept the best of the animals. He kept the best of the women and the children. And then when Samuel told him, why did you do that? He said, but I did do what you said, but he didn't. And then Samuel killed the king, and 500 years later, somebody was born. His name was Haman. What do we say when we hear the name Haman? Ooh. Oh, you got your grogger. What do we say when we hear the name Esther?
Yay.
Hooray! What do we say when we hear the name Mordecai? Yay! So when God tells us to do something, we need to listen, right, Eli?
Yep.
That's for sure. So we're going to read the story of Esther. So we always remember to be obedient to God's commandments, and then he will take care of us. He won't let the enemies come against us. And even today, in the same part of the world, in Iran, do you know what the name for Iran used to be in ancient days? Who knows? Persia. Exactly. Ancient Persia is reborn in Iran, and Iran is trying to still wipe us out. It's unbelievable. And did you know that Arafat said he was an Amalekite?
Wow.
Exactly. And we've had Amalekites with us right from the beginning when we were leaving Egypt. Do you remember that, Eli? When we were leaving Egypt?
I don't.
No.
You remember, Pat? You were there, I think, no? When we were leaving ancient Egypt, the Amalekites attacked us from the rear. They killed the children and the sick and the elderly. And that's why God said, forever the Amalekites will be our enemies. You got it, Gabe. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share the screen, and we're going to take turns reading. I'll begin to make it, let me see, where are we here? Here, this one here. Oh, that's not it at all. That's not it at all. Okay, that's not it. Let me open you up. Okay, I had this all perfect. Hold on a second. Let me go back to the beginning. I had worked on this all day to go back to make it perfect. Come on. Let me start again. Now everything went black. Ah!
43878 something 541.
No, I can't see anything. Here we go. Hold on. Okay. Where are you?
Which one is that? Thompson chain.
Purim. Here we go. Come on, baby. Open up. Okay. Now, view.
Here's that.
Reading. Okay. Here we go. Now, let me share the screen. And this is the book of Esther. Okay. It was in the days of Ahasuerus, the Ahasuerus whose empire stretched from India to Ethiopia and was comprised of 127 provinces.
Yeah.
In those days, when King Ahasuerus was sitting on his royal throne in the capital of Shushan, in the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a banquet at his court for all his princes and servants, Persian, which is today Iran, and Median, which was probably the Medianites, army officers, nobles, and provincial governors. Okay, who's going to read next? Somebody read. First come, first serve.
I'll go.
Go ahead.
Thus he displayed the riches and splendor of his empire and the pomp and glory of his majesty. The festivities went on for a long time, 180 days. When this period was over, for 7 days, the king gave a banquet for all the people living in the capital of Shushan, to high and low alike, in the court of the gardens of the royal palace. There were white, green, and blue hangings fastened with cords of fine linen and purple thread to silver rings on marble columns, couches of gold and silver on a pavement of alabaster, marble, mother of pearl, and precious stones. For drinking, there were golden cups of various design and wine in abundance according to the bounty of the king. The royal edict did not, however, make drinking obligatory, the king having instructed all the officials of his household to treat each guest according to the guest's own wishes. Queen Vashti, for her part, gave a banquet for the women in the royal Ahasuerus.
Oh, I think I made a mistake there. Okay.
In her royal chambers, that's for sure.
Yes.
On the 7th day, when the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Bista, Harbona, Bigta, Abagta, Zetar, and Carcass, the 7 eunuchs in service to King Ahasuerus, to bring Queen Vashti before the king, crowned with her royal diadem, to display her beauty to the people and the princes, since she was very beautiful.
Next. Jerry, would you like to read?
But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command, delivered by the eunuchs. I just shortening screen. The king was very angry at this, and his rage grew hot. Addressing himself to the wise men who were versed in the law, it being the practice to refer matters affecting the king to expert lawyers and jurists, he summoned Karshena, Shitar, Atmata, Tarshish, Meres, Marsena, and Memucan, 7 Persian and Median princes who had privileged access to the royal presence and occupied the leading positions in the kingdom. According to the law, he said.
What? No, I don't know.
Pat, you want to put yourself on mute if you're going to speak to somebody?
Yeah, I thought it was on mute.
No, thanks, honey. Okay, go ahead, Jerry.
According to the law, he said, what is to be done to Queen Vashti for not obeying the command of King Ahasuerus, delivered by the officers in the presence of the king and the princes? Memucan replied, Queen Vashti has wronged not only the king, but also the princes and all the people inhabiting the provinces of King Ahasuerus. The queen's conduct will soon become known to all the women, who will adopt a contemptuous attitude towards their husbands. They will say, King Ahasuerus himself commanded Queen Vashti to appear before him, and she did not come. Before the day is out, the wives of the Persian and Median princes will be telling every one of the king's princes what they have heard about the queen's behavior, and that will mean contempt and anger all around. If it is the king's pleasure, let him issue a royal edict to be irrevocably incorporated into the laws of the Persians and Medes, to the effect that Vashti is never to appear again before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal position to a worthier woman. Let the edict issued by the king be proclaimed throughout his empire, which is great, and all the women will henceforth honor the authority of their husbands, both high and low alike. This speech pleased the king and the princes, and the king did as Memucan advised. He sent letters to all the provinces. He sent letters to all the provinces of the kingdom, to each province in its own script, and to each nation in its own language, ensuring that every husband should be master in his own house.
Miriam, would you like to
Yeah,
read?
Sure, okay. A while later, when the king's anger had subsided, Ahasuerus remembered Vashti, how she had behaved, and the measure taken against her. The king's servants who ministered to him said, a search should be made on the king's behalf for beautiful young virgins, and let the king appoint commissioners throughout the provinces of his realm to bring all these beautiful young virgins to the capital of Shushan, to the harem under the authority of Haggai, the king's eunuch, keeper of the women. Here he will give them whatever they need for enhancing their beauty, and the girl who pleases the king can take Vashti's place as queen. This advice pleased the king, and he acted on it. Now, in the capital of Shushan, there lived a Jew named Mordecai.
Hooray!
Hooray! Son of
Hooray.
son of Yair, son of Shemai, son of the tribe of Benjamin, who had been exiled from Jerusalem among the captives taken away with Jeconiah, king of Yehuda, by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and was now bringing up a certain Hadassah, otherwise called Esther. Hooray!
Yay!
His uncle's daughter, who had lost both father and mother. The girl had a good figure and a beautiful face, and on the death of her parents, Mordecai had adopted her as his daughter.
Hooray, Mordecai.
Hooray.
Eli, would you like to read?
Yes, sure. By royal commanded decree, a great number of girls were brought to the capital city of Shushan, where they were entrusted to Haggai.
Hey!
Esther too was taken to the king's palace and entrusted to Haggai, the guardian of the women. The girl pleased him and won his favor. Not only did he quickly provide her with all she needed for her dressing room and her meals, but he gave her 7 special maids. Yay! From the king's household, transferred her and her maids to the best part of the harem. Esther had not declared her people nor her country, since Mordecai had forbidden her to do so.
Tammy, would you like to read? Okay. Tammy, you would want to read? Okay, who else is here?
I can read if you will.
Okay, Angel, go ahead.
Okay. Well, we just
It went forward.
back. Go next. Yeah. Like, Mordecai walked up and down in front of the courtyard of the harem every day to learn how Esther
Yay!
and how she was being treated. Each girl had to appear in turn before the king after 12 months fixed by the regulations for the women. This period of preparation was as follows: 6 months with oil of myrrh and 6 months with spices and lotions commonly used for beauty treatment. When each girl went to the king, she was given whatever she wanted to take with her, since she then moved from the harem into the royal household. She went there in in the evening, and the following morning returned to another harem entrusted to the care of Shashgaz, the king's officer, custodian of the concubines. She did not go to the king anymore unless he was particularly pleased with her and had her summoned by name. But when it was the turn of Esther,
Hooray!
whose nephew Mordecai had adopted her as his own daughter, to go into the king's presence, she did not ask for anything beyond what had been assigned her by Haggai, the king's officer, custodian of the women. Esther wanted
Hooray!
of all who saw her. She was brought to the king in his royal apartment in the 10th month, which is called Tebet, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king liked Esther
Hooray!
than any of the other women. None of the other girls found so much favor and approval with him. So he set the royal crown on her head and proclaimed her queen instead of Vashti.
Let's see who would like to read. But Brian, do you want to read?
Interesting that Mordecai was the same family as Saul.
Are you having trouble unmuting, Brian?
No?
Benjamin, he was a Benjamite.
You hear me now?
Yes, I hear you. Go ahead.
The king then gave a great banquet, Esther's banquet, for all his princes and servants. He granted a reduction of taxes to the provinces and gave gifts according to the state of the king. When Esther, like she had been transferred to the second harem, she had not told anyone her country or that of her people according to the orders of the Mordecai. She continued to follow as when she had been under his care. At this time, Mordecai and two of the king's eunuchs, Big Tan and Tresha, officer who granted or plotted to assassinate King Ahasuerus. Mordecai came to hear of it and Queen Esther.
Hooray!
And Mordecai continued. The king matter was investigated and proved to be true. The two men were hanged on a tree and was written in the book of Chronicles of the king.
Et Pete, tu veux lire un petit peu en anglais?
Je vais essayer.
Okay.
Shortly afterwards, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite. He advanced him and set his seat above all his colleagues and other officials of state, and all the royal officials who were at the king's gate bowed low and prostrated themselves whenever Haman appeared. For such was the king's command, but Mordecai refused either to bow or to prostrate himself. The officials of the king's gate asked Mordecai, "Why do you transgress the royal command?"
Day after day they asked him this, but he took no notice of them. In the end, they reported the matter to Haman to see whether Mordecai would persist in his attitude, since he had told them that he was a Jew. Haman could see for himself that Mordecai did not bow or prostrate himself in his presence, he became furiously angry. And on being told what people Mordecai,
Yay!
he thought it wasn't enough to merely get rid of Mordecai.
Yay!
Instead, he made up his mind to wipe out all of Mordecai's people, the Jews who were living in Ahasuerus' entire empire. Jerry?
In the first month, that is the month of Nisan, of the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, the pure, that is the lot, was cast in Haman's presence to determine the day and the month. The lot falling on the 12th month, which is Adar. Haman said to King Ahasuerus, there's a certain unassimilated nature scattered among the other nations throughout the provinces of your realm. Their laws are different from those of all the other nations, and the royal laws they ignore. So it is not in the king's interests to tolerate them. If it pleases the king to sign for their destruction, I am ready to pay 10,000 talents of silver to those who keep charge of the king's business, to bring it into the king's treasuries. The king then took his signet ring off his hand and gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha, persecutor of the Jews.
Yeah.
Keep the money, he said, and you can have the people too. Do what you like with them. The royal scribes were therefore summoned for the 13th day of the first month, when they wrote out the orders addressed by Haman to the king's satraps, to the governors ruling each province, and to the principal officials of each people, to each province in its own script, and to each people in its own language.
Brenda?
Edict was signed in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed with his ring, and letters were sent by runners to every province of the realm, ordering the destruction, slaughter, and annihilation of all Jews, young and old, including women and children, on the same day, the 13th day of the 12th month, which is Adar, and the seizing of their possessions. Copies of this decree, to be circulated as law in each province, were published to the various peoples so that they each might be ready for the day previously mentioned. At the king's command, the runners set out with all speed. The decree was first broadcasted in the capital of Shushan, while the king and Haman gave themselves up to feasting and drinking, and anxiety reigned in the city of Shushan. Chapter 4. When Mordecai, learned what had happened, tore his garments and put on sackcloth and ashes. Then he walked into the center of the city, wailing loudly and bitterly until he arrived in front of the king's gate, which no one who was clothed in sackcloth was allowed to enter.
Miriam?
And in every province, no sooner had the royal command and edict arrived than among the Jews there was great mourning, fasting, weeping and wailing. And many lay on sackcloth and ashes. When Queen Esther's maids and officers came and told her, she was overcome with grief. She sent clothes for Mordecai to put on instead of the sackcloth, but he refused them. Esther, go to Mordecai, and inquire what was wrong and why he was acting this way. Hatach went out to Mordecai in the city square, and Mordecai told him what had happened to him personally and about the sum of money which Haman offered to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. He also gave him a copy of the Edict of Extermination published in Shushan for him to show Esther
Hooray!
for her information with the message that she was to go to the king and implore his favor and plead with him for her people to whom she belonged.
Angel?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Hathach came back and told Esther
Hooray!
what Mordecai had said. And she replied with the following message for Mordecai. Royal officials and people living in the provinces alike all know that for anyone, men or women, who approaches the king in the private apartment without having been summoned there, there is only one law: he must die, unless the king, by pointing his golden scepter towards him, grants him his life. And I have not been summoned to the king for the last 30 days.
Eli?
Yep. These words of Esther were reported to Mordecai, who sent back the following reply. Do not suppose that just because you are in the king's palace, you will be the one Jew to escape. No, if you persist on remaining silent at such a time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jews from another place. But both you and your father's whole family will perish. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to the throne for such a time as this.
Amen.
Then Esther
Yay!
replied to Mordecai, Go and assemble all the Jews now in Shushan and fast for me. Do not eat or drink day or night for 3 days. For my part, and I and my servants shall keep the same fast. After which I shall go to the king despite the law, and if I perish, I perish. Mordecai went away and carried out Esther's instructions.
Yeah! Esther.
No, come on. My mouse is acting up. Hold on, it doesn't want to move. There we go. Okay. Did I miss anybody who wanted to read? AT, tu veux encore?
Okay. On the third day, Esther
Yay!
in her royal robes and stood in the inner court next to the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house over against the entrance of the house. And it was so when the king saw Esther standing in the court that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out the golden scepter and was in his hand to Esther.
Yay!
So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter. The king said to her, Tell me what you wish, Queen Esther.
Yay!
Even if it's up to half my kingdom, I will grant it to you. Would it please the king, Esther replied, to come with Haman today to a banquet that I have prepared for him? The king said, Tell Haman to come at once so that Esther may have her wish. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther prepared. And during the banquet, the king again said to Esther, Tell me your request, I shall grant it to you. Tell me what you want. Even it's up to half my kingdom, it is yours for the asking. Then Esther replied, My petition and my request is that if I have found favor in the king's eyes, if it is his pleasure to grant what I ask and to agree to my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I intend to give them tomorrow. Then I shall do as the king says. Haman left full of joy and high spirits that day. But when he saw Mordecai at the king's gate, neither standing up nor moving at his approach, he felt a burst of anger. He restrained himself, however, Returning home, he sent for his friends and Zeresh his wife and boasted to them about his great wealth, his many children, how the king had raised him to a position of honor and promoted him over the heads of the kings, princes, and ministers. Who would like to read?
I will.
Go ahead, Miriam.
Haman.
Whoa!
Left full of joy and high spirits that day. But when he saw Mordecai at the king's gate, neither standing up nor moving at his approach, he felt a burst of anger. He restrained himself, however. Returning home, he sent for his friends and
Wait a
Zeresh.
minute. I did this already. Let me do the next one. Go ahead.
Did you do that?
Yeah, I read exactly the same thing.
What is more, Haman,
Boo!
Queen Esther has just invited me and the king, no one else except me, to a banquet she was giving. And better still, she has invited me and the king again tomorrow. But what do I care about all this when all the while I see Mordecai,
Boo! Yay!
the Jew, sitting there at the king's gate? Then Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends said, have a 50-cubit gallows built, and in the morning ask the king to have Mordecai hanged on it. Then you
Boo!
can go with the king to the banquet without a care in the world. Delighted with this advice, Haman had the gallows erected.
Jerry?
Chapter 6. That night, the king could not sleep. He called for the record book or the chronicles to be brought and read to him. They contained an account of how Mordecai
Yay!
had denounced Bigtan and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs serving as guards of the door, who had plotted to assassinate King Ahasuerus, and what honor and dignity the king asked was conferred upon Mordecai for this. Nothing has been done for him, the gentleman in waiting replied. The king then said, who is that outside in the court? At that very moment, Haman had entered the outer court of the private apartments to ask the king to have Mordecai hanged on the gallows, which he has just put up for that purpose. So the king's gentleman in waiting replied, it is Haman. Out in the court. Bring him in, the king said. And as soon as Haman came in, went on to ask, what is the proper way to treat a man whom the king wishes to honor? Whom, thought Haman, would the king wish to honor if not me?
Wow. Did I do this one? Yeah, next one. Sorry. So he replied, if the king wishes to honor someone, royal robes should be brought for the king's wardrobe and a horse from the king's stable, and he should wear a royal crown on his head. The robes and horse should be entrusted to one of the noblest of the king's officers of state, who should then dress the man whom the king wishes to honor and lead him on horseback through the city square, proclaiming before him, this is the way a man should be treated whom the king wishes to honor. Hurry, the king said to Haman. Take the robes and the horse and do everything you have just said to Mordecai, the Jew who works at the king's gate. Be sure to not leave out anything that you have mentioned. So taking the robes and the horse, Haman dressed Mordecai and led him on horseback through the city square, proclaiming before him, this is the way a king should be treated whom the king wishes
No,
to
this is the
honor.
way a man should be.
This is the way a man should be treated whom the king wishes to honor. Oy vey.
Oy vey.
Brenda?
Sure. After this, Mordecai
Yay!
turned to the king's gate while Haman, hurrying home, dejected and covering his face, who told his wife Zeresh and all his friends what had just happened. His wife Zeresh and his friends said, "You are beginning to fall." And Mordecai, rise. If he is Jewish, you will never get the better of him. With him against you, your fall is certain. While they were still talking, the king's officers arrived in a hurry to escort Haman to the banquet that Esther.
Yay!
Chapter 7. The king and Haman went to Queen Esther's. And this second day, during the banquet, the king again said to Esther,
Yay!
"Tell me your request, Queen Esther.
Yay.
I shall grant it to you. Whatever you wish, even if it's up to half my kingdom, it is yours for the asking." "Well, if I found favor in your eyes, O king," Queen Esther replied,
Yay!
"and if it please your majesty, grant me my life. That is my request, and the lives of my people. That is what I want."
Who's next? Eli or Angel?
Sure.
For we have been handed over, my people and I, to destruction, slaughter, and annihilation. Had we merely been sold as a slave and servant girls, I should not have said anything, but in the present case, it will be beyond the persecutor's means to make good the loss that the king is about to sustain. King Ahasuerus interrupted Queen Esther.
Yay!
"Who is this man?" he exclaimed. Where is the man who has thought of doing such a thing? Esther,
Hooray!
the persecutor, the enemy. Why this wretch Haman?
Boo!
Haman,
Boo!
terror in the presence of the king and queen.
As he should.
That's right.
Eli?
Oh, I can continue one.
Sure.
In a rage, the king got up from the banquet and went into the palace garden, while Haman, realizing that the king was determined on his ruin, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. When the king came back from the palace garden into the banqueting hall, he found Haman sprawled across the couch where Esther was reclining. "What?" the king exclaimed. "Is he going to molest the queen in my own palace?" The words were scarcely out of his mouth than a veil was thrown over Haman's face. In the royal presence, Harbonah, one of the officers, said, "There is that 50-cubit gallows too, which Haman ran up for Mordecai to expose up to the king's great advantage. It is already at his house. Hang him on it," said the king. So Haman was hanged on the gallows which he had erected for Mordecai, and the king's wrath subsided.
Eli?
Oh, yep. Chapter 8. The same day, King Ahasuerus gave Queen Esther the of Haman, the persecutor of the Jews. Mordecai was presented to the king Esther, having revealed their mutual relationship, the king, who had recovered his signet ring from Haman,
Boo!
took it off and gave it to Mordecai. While Esther gave Mordecai charge of funds. Esther again went to the king. She felt at his feet, weeping and imploring his favor to frustrate the malice that Haman, the Agagite had been plotting against the Jews. The
I
king
thought
held
he's
out.
a Malachite. Is that the same thing?
He's from King Agag.
Oh.
The king held out the golden scepter to her, whereupon Esther stood up and faced him. If such is the king's good pleasure, she said, and if I have found favor before him, if my petition seems proper to him, and if I myself am pleasing to his eyes, may he be pleased to issue a written revocation of the letters which Haman,
Whoa.
son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, has had written, ordering the destruction of the Jews throughout the royal provinces. For how can I look on while my people suffer what is proposed for them? How can I bear to witness the extermination of my relatives?
Boy, I don't know what to do. This thing is not working. Okay. Brenda, have you read?
I did a couple of pages back, but I don't
Okay,
mind
so I'll read it. The king said to Queen Esther, to Mordecai the Jew, behold, I have given Haman's house to Esther and had him hanged on the gallows for planning to destroy the Jews. You, for your part, write what you please regarding the Jews in the king's name and seal it with the king's ring. For any edict written in the king's name and sealed with his ring is irrevocable. The royal scribes were summoned at once. It was the 3rd month, the month of Sivan. On the 23rd day, oh, my birthday's the 22nd day of Sivan. Huh.
Oh, yeah.
And Mordecai's command, an order was written to the Jews, the satraps, governors, and principal officials of the provinces, stretching from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces, to each province in its own script, and to each people in its own language, and to the Jews in their own script and language. Whoops. Oh. Ah.
I think
Okay.
we've seen this.
Here we go. This one we did now.
Yeah.
This is new. Okay. Who's next? Jerry?
These letters, written in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed with the king's signet ring, were carried by couriers mounted on horses from the king's own stud farms. In them, the king granted the Jews, in whatever city they lived, the right to assemble in self-defense, with permission to destroy, slaughter, and annihilate any armed force of any people or province that might attack them, together with their women and children, and to plunder their possessions. With effect from the same day throughout the provinces of King Ahasuerus, the 13th day of the 12th month, which is Adar, copies of the edict to be broadcast as law in each province were published to the various peoples, so that the Jews could be ready on the day stated to avenge themselves on their enemies. The couriers mounted on the king's horses set out in great haste and urgency at the king's command. The edict was also published in the capital of Shushan. Mordecai
Hooray!
left the royal presence in a princely gown and violet and white, with a great golden crown and a cloak of fine linen and purple. The city of Shushan shouted for joy, for the Jews there were light and gladness, joy and honor. In every province and in every city, wherever the king's command and decree had arrived, there was joy and gladness among the Jews, with feasting and holiday making. Of the country's population, many became Jews, since now the Jews were feared.
Ryan, would you like to read?
Okay, chapter 9.
Yes, sir.
The king's command and decree came into force on the 13th day of the 12th month Adar, and the day on which the enemies of the Jews had hoped to crush them produced the very opposite effect. The Jews had who crushed their enemies in their towns throughout the provinces of the king. The Jews assembled and struck at those who had planned to injure them. No one resisted them, since the various people and now all afraid of them. Provincial princes, satraps, and governors, royal officials all supported the Jews' fear of Mordecai.
Hooray!
Power in the palace and its fame has spread throughout all the provinces. Mordecai was steadily growing more powerful. So the Jews struck down all their enemies with the sword, with resulting slaughter and destructions, and worked their will on their opponents. In the capital of Shushan alone, the Jews had put to death and slaughtered 500 men, notably Pardaisians, whatever,
Dalphon, Aspata, Porata, Adalia, Aridata, Parmashat, Parmashta, Arisai, Aridai, Jasata. Okay, go ahead.
two sons of the human, son of the Hamalatite, to the Jews, but took no plunder. The number of the capital reported that same day.
Okay, who's next? Miriam?
Yeah. The king said to Queen Esther,
Yay!
in the capital of Shushan, the Jews have killed 500 men and the 10 sons of Haman.
Boo!
What must they have done in the other provinces of the realm? Tell me your request, I grant it to you. Tell me what else you would like. It is yours for the asking, if such is the king's pleasure. Esther replied.
Yay!
Let the Jews of Shushan be allowed to enforce today's decree tomorrow as well. And as for the 10 sons of Haman,
Boo!
let their bodies be hanged on the gallows. Whereupon the king, having given the order, the edict was promulgated in Shushan, and the 10 sons of Haman were hanged. Thus the Jews of Shushan reassembled on the 14th day of the month of Adar and killed 300 men in the city, but they took no plunder. The other Jews who lived in the king's provinces also assembled to defend their lives and rid themselves of their enemies. They slaughtered 75,000 of their opponents,
Wow.
but they took no plunder. This was on the 13th day of the month of Adar. On the 14th day, they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But for the Jews of Shushan, who had assembled on the 13th and 14th day, the 15th was the day they rested, making that a day of feasting and gladness.
Oops. How do I go back? Brent, the King's End. Did we read this one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Who hasn't read?
Everyone's read those.
I don't know how to.
Okay. Soon.
Gabe, you want to read?
Yes,
No, I don't know how to read.
Oh, you will soon. Brenda?
I
Yeah.
already know.
Okay, therefore, Jewish country people, those who live in undefended villages, keep the 14th day of the month of Adar as a day of gladness, feasting, and holiday making, and the exchanging of presents with one another. Mordecai
Yay!
Yay!
committed these events to writing. Then he sent letters to all the Jews living in the provinces of King Ahasuerus, both near and far, enjoining them to celebrate the 14th and 15th days of the month of Adar every year as the days on which the Jews had rid themselves of their enemies, and the month in which their sorrow had been turned into gladness and mourning into a holiday. He therefore told them to keep these as days of festivity and gladness when they were to exchange presents and make gifts to the poor.
Once having begun, the Jews continued observing these practices. Mordecai, having written them on account of how Haman, the son of what happened to me? The son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the persecutor of all the Jews, had plotted their destruction and cast the poor, that is the lot, for their overthrow and ruin. But how, when he went back to the king to ask him to order the hanging of Mordecai, the wicked scheme which he had devised against the Jews recoiled on his own head, and both he and his sons were hanged on the gallows, and that hence these days were called Purim, from the word poor. And so because of what was written in this letter, and because of what they had seen for themselves, and of what had happened to them, the Jews willingly bound themselves, their descendants, that's us, and all who should join them, to celebrate these 2 days without fail in the manner prescribed and at the time appointed year after year, thus commemorated and celebrated from generation to generation in every family, in every province, in every city. These days of Purim will never be abrogated among the Jews, nor will their memory perish from their people. Queen Esther, the daughter of Abihail, wrote with full authority to ratify this second letter and sent letters to all the Jews of the 127 provinces of the realm of Ahasuerus in terms of peace and loyalty, enjoining them to observe these days of Purim at the appointed time, as Mordecai, the Jew, had recommended, and in the manner prescribed for themselves and their descendants, with additional ordinances for fasts and lamentations. The ordinance of Esther fixed the law of Purim, which was then recorded in a book. King Ahasuerus put not only the mainland under tribute, but the Mediterranean islands as well. All his feats of power and valor, and the account of the high honor to which he raised Mordecai. All this is recorded in the book of the annals of the kings of Media and Persia. And Mordecai the Jew was next in rank to King Ahasuerus. He was a man held in respect among the Jews, esteemed by thousands of his brothers, a man who sought the good of his people and cared for the welfare of his entire people. Does that remind you of somebody? That he was second to King Ahasuerus?
Oh, yes.
Joseph.
Joseph.
Joseph was second to Pharaoh. Exactly. So now
Daniel too.
Daniel was raised up. It's amazing how the stories repeat themselves over and over, because God always is sending us a message. Okay, now let me do a new share, and we'll do a few songs for Purim. Everybody knows this one, right? So we can all sing it together. Hag Purim, Hag Purim, Hagadol Yechad Yeladim, Masechot, Rashanim, Zmirot Perikudim, Havanerisha, Rash, 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 Havanerisha. Where are all the groggers? Havanerisha, Barashanim, Hagpurim, Hagpurim, Hagadol Yeladim, Mahmadim, Mamtakim, Tuvanim, Bemigdanot, Havanerisha, 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 Rash, 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 Barashanim. Purim day, some joyous holiday, happy throngs, singing songs, mask and dancing gay. Havanarisha,
Vash, vash, vash.
Havanarisha,
Vash, vash, vash.
Havanarisha,
Vash, vash, vash.
Barashanim. Purim day, present giving holidays, home and tashin, good to eat, cakes and candy sweet. Havanarisha,
Vash, vash, vash.
Havanarisha,
Vash, vash, vash.
Havanarisha, Rash,
Vash,
Rash, Rash,
vash, vash.
Barashanim, Barashanim, Barashanim. A great holiday for children, and we at this time are all children.
Yay.
Now, what do we say? When you hear the name of Haman, shout.
Hooray.
When you hear the name of Esther, shout.
Hooray.
When you hear the name of Esther, when you hear the name of Esther, when you hear the name of Esther, shout.
Hooray.
What happened?
Hooray.
When you hear the name of Haman, shout.
Ooh.
When you hear the name Haman, shout.
Ooh.
When you hear the name Haman, when you hear the name Haman, when you hear the name Haman, shout. When you hear the name of Mordecai, clap your hands. When you hear the name of Mordecai, clap your hands. When you hear the name of Mordecai, when you hear the name of Mordecai, when you hear the name of Mordecai, clap your hands. When you hear the name of Hashverosh, shout hooray.
Hooray.
When you hear the name of Hashverosh, shout hooray. When you hear the name of Hashverosh, when you hear the name of Hashverosh, when you hear the name of Hashverosh, shout. When you hear the name of Esther, shout.
Hooray.
When you hear the name of Esther, shout. When you hear the name of Esther, when you hear the name of Esther, when you hear the name of Esther, shout. When you hear the name of Esther, stamp your feet. When you hear the name of Haman, stamp your feet. When you hear the name Haman, when you hear the name Haman, when you hear the name Haman, stamp your feet. When you hear the name of Mordecai, shout hooray. When you hear the name of Mordecai, shout. When you hear the name of Mordecai, when you hear the name of Mordecai, when you hear the name of Mordecai, shout. When you hear the name of Haman, shout. When you hear the name Haman, shout. When you hear the name Haman, when you hear the name Haman, when you hear the name of Haman, shout. Oh! Now this one comes from our prophet Isaiah, who always told us the truth. The plans of our enemies shall come to nothing. They can speak words, but they shall not stand. For God is Immanuel. God is with us. Utsu etzavetu far. Dabru davar velo yakum. Utsu etzavetu far. Dabru davar velo yakum ki Immanuel. Utsu etzavetu far. Dabru davar velo yakum ki Immanuel. The plans of our enemies shall fail. The plans of our enemies shall fail. They shall speak, they shall plan, but they shall not succeed. For our God is with us. They shall plan, they shall speak, but they shall not succeed. For our God is Emmanuel. Utsu etzavetu far. Dabru davar velo yakum. Utsu etzavetu far. Dabru davar velo yakum ki Immanuel. Utsu etzavetu far. Dabru davar velo yakum ki Immanuel. Our God is Emmanuel. Our God is with us.
Yay.
Hooray. We always have to remember that. Our God, no matter what we're going through, is with us. And this is a beautiful song from Psalm 118, 5 and 9. Adonai li lo ira ma yaseh li adam. Adonai li lo ira ma yaseh li adam. Mina metzar karatia anani vermechav ya tov lachasot ba'adonai mibetoach ba'adam tov lachasot be'adonai mibetoach b'ndivim. The Lord is for me. I will not be afraid. What can man do to me? The Lord is for me. I will not be afraid. What can man do to me? From the narrow place, I called on the Lord. He answered me from his broad place. It is better to trust in the Lord than in man, to trust in the Lord than in princes. Adonai li lo ira ma yaseh li adam. Adonai li lo ira ma yaseh li adam. Now this song, I don't know if any of you know it, but I thought I'd bring you a new song, which is a beautiful one for Purim. Mordechai yatsa milifnei hamelech belivut malchut va'ateret alav. Umordechai yatsa milifnei hamelech ve'ayir Shushan tza'alav v'samecha. Yehudim hayta ora v'simcha v'sason v'yikar. לילדים הייתה אורה ושמחה, אורה ושמחה וששון ויקר. And Mordechai went out from before the king with a golden crown and dressed like royalty. And Mordechai went out from before the king, the city of Shushan, cheering joyfully. The Jews were filled with light and gladness, and abounding joy. The Jews were filled with light and gladness, and abounding joy. Mordechai yatsa milifnei hamelech belivut malchut va'ateret zahav. Mordechai yatsa milifnei hamelech ve'ayir Shushan tza'alav v'samecha. Yehudim hayta ora v'simcha v'sason v'yikar. לילדים הייתה אורה ושמחה וששון ויקר. Just one last one.
Yes.
When fear raises its ugly head, we turn to Psalm 129 and we sing Hine lo yanum. And though there's so many things, if we listen to the world, to the news today, we watch what's going on, we can become so frightened. But then the psalm says, I lift my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to stumble. He who watches over you does not sleep. Remember, God never sleeps and he's always watching over us. Behold, he who guards Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. The Lord is our keeper. He is at our right hand. The sun shall not strike us by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord preserves us from all evil. He guards our lives. The Lord guards our comings and our goings, both now and forevermore. And lo yadum velo yishan, lo yadum velo yishan. Hine lo yanum velo yishan, shomer Israel. He that keepeth Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps, slumbers nor sleeps, slumbers nor sleeps. He that keepeth Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps, slumbers nor sleeps. Those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion, which shall never be removed and shall remain forever. As the mountains are about Jerusalem, so the Lord is round about, round his people here. Hine lo yanum velo yishan, lo yanum velo yishan. Hine lo yanum velo yishan, shomer Israel. He that keepeth Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps, slumbers nor sleeps, slumbers nor sleeps. He that keepeth Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps, slumbers nor sleeps. So whenever we're afraid, whenever we can't fall asleep, that's what we can say. Hine lo yanum velo yishan, shomer Israel. He who keeps Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps, and he watches over us every minute of the day and night. Right, Gabe? He never forgets us.
You know, this everything bagel spice came in really handy.
Ooh, oh, that's hilarious.
God watches over us every single day. He doesn't want anything bad.
He doesn't want anything bad to happen to us. But sometimes there are bad people in the world and they do bad things. And sometimes innocent people get in the way. They may be at the wrong place at the wrong time. So what do? We need to pray. And we need to do right. We need to keep his 10 commandments, right? And then he'll always watch over us, right?
Right.
Right. Exactly. So what did you think of the story? Did you like the story?
Mm-hmm.
We listen to it every single year because we're never supposed to forget. Hi, Amalia. I see you. We're never. Hi, sweetheart.
Unicorn of the
They're all here.
sea.
We just don't have enough room.
I know. That's wonderful. Your quiver is full. Just like Trisha, her quiver is full.
Where's Benjamin?
He's over here. He's pretending to run away now, but he's here.
Oh, I think I see.
It's okay.
There you go. Hi, Ben.
Find it. I
Does anybody have anything to say about Purim and about what's going on in the world and how this story has been fulfilled over and over again?
It is a beautiful message, but not only for us, but for entire humankind.
For
And also
everybody.
that any tribe or any around the world, nobody has the right to annihilate or to destroy life.
Exactly.
And life is sacred in God's creation, and we have to preserve it. Now, another thing is also about the importance of anyways, that's the main.
Thank you, Angel. Does the
I
lion
wonder-
Aslan have any wisdom to impart?
I was just curious, I know that they found the mountain in Saudi Arabia from where Moses, the Mount Sinai.
Yes.
I wonder, what is there things in Persian history books or any sort of things depicting this story? Or like the story, I know it's whether or not it's true, it is true because it happens all the time, but I was just wondering if there's any historical
Miriam, our history has been adulterated. We don't have the real history. It has been changed. Okay.
Especially in those countries who want to forget, like in Egypt, they took away any message of the Pesach. You won't find that in any Egyptian books because they
I'm just
don't want.
wondering if any Israeli archaeologists have what they say about Purim.
One of the things that if you look at it, when you read, especially when we read chapter 7, I think the idea here is not to exterminate, create a holocaust, but the idea is to protect ourselves. Sorry, to protect ourselves of our enemies. Okay, and those that they have in mind, set up in their mind to destroy and kill, and in the world we have suffered, through history, a lot of conflicts,
Persecution,
different either religions between different types, but even among the same people, they have different sects and different. It has been always about division and separation, and that is not the message of the Creator. The Creator has called us to be all unified, to be all in oneness with Him.
exactly.
And until we don't love each other, until we don't come all together with the same mind to preserve life of every human, and to defend it, it's important. This is the message. No, the message is not to to vengeance and to destroy everyone, as everybody knows in common sense that if someone wants to destroy you, you have the right to defend yourself.
Exactly. And that's what they're trying to take away from Israel.
Sorry.
The right to destroy, to defend ourselves.
Yeah, but another thing is we are not meant to go and take all the wealth and all the riches from everyone, if we have the right to do it.
Well, we saw that in this story. Remember when they fought back, they didn't take any of the booty.
Yeah, that's right.
So
yeah,
So
exactly.
not to get confused that's gonna give us an incentive to do all these bad things, as we know in the story of Saul, that when Saul brought all the wealth and all saved the thing, he got punished by the Creator.
Exactly.
Now, we are having his different stories, and with two different ways to act. So then which one is the right way to do? It's always to do what is right. And we know because the Creator is in us, and He always shows us what is everything that we do in love and that is the way. It's the
Right.
way.
The first thing that he did when he brought us out of Egypt was to build an army. And the Israeli army is the only army in the world called the defense force. We are not an offensive. But we have the right to defend ourselves. Absolutely.
Lion, we want to know, do you eat rabbits?
It's so funny. We're having a serious discussion, and I'm talking seriously with a lion nose.
And when you're talking, your nose is going up and down. It's so cute.
Well, that's like in The Wizard of Oz. I'm the king of the forest.
I need a heart.
Oh, Karen, I got the beautiful message with your two pooches.
Yeah.
They're so cute. But I was trying to look it up so I could respond. I forget which system did you call me on WhatsApp? I couldn't find it on.
I sent you the pictures on email.
Oh, so I went onto my phone. I couldn't find it. Anyway, I'm sure it's there again. But beautiful pictures.
Brenda, you have anything to say about Purim?
Well, I was going to answer Miriam's question. I'm not aware of any historical or archaeological evidence of the story of Purim that's come up so far, but if I find something, I'll let you know.
However, I'm very curious. Yes.
However, we know that Daniel the prophet was living in Persia as well, and his tomb is there and it can be visited.
Oh, interesting.
It's in Iran, yes.
Right.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. I've seen pictures of it, but I haven't been there.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So they don't deny Daniel because he certainly was there.
Yeah.
It would be nice to find out if they have any kind of records archaeologically in their own archives, but we don't have access to that stuff, right. So hard to say.
Exactly. Miriam and I met a gentleman who was from Armenia.
Oh, yeah.
And when we started talking to him, he was so excited to talk about the Bible and about God because he had read it when he was young. And he was almost in tears as we were talking to him. And he said that, that Noah's Ark landed on Mount Ararat, which is in Turkey. Not so in Turkey.
Cute. Look at the face.
Look at that face. Did you know you were on, your descendants were on, he's a descendant of one who was on the Ark.
It's like that's my spirit.
Right.
He almost looks like
my
Avatar.
He looks like your relative Miriam right now.
That's
right.
That's when I play
He
games.
looks like Avatar. Peggy, he has the same.
He looks like Avatar. He's so
what
cute.
What a nice face. What's his name?
Ellis.
Ellis.
Ellis. How old is he?
He's a good boy. About 14, I think.
14.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's why he has that face. Like, don't mess with me. I've been around.
That's hilarious.
You know what? He's a kosher cat. He loves matzah and he loves grape juice.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
Yeah, matzah. He does.
Beautiful face.
Yeah. So this gentleman from Armenia said that because they found the Ark on Mount Ararat, which is in Armenia, everybody in the world are Armenians.
Yeah, that's funny.
I thought that was hilarious. Well, we all know that we come from one family. Okay. And if we're all relatives, we need to treat each other well. But even better than we treat our own families. So thank you, everybody, for coming to our Purim party. Thank you for all your costumes.
That was a beautiful presentation, and the colors. What's it called?
The pictures.
Pictures, but what's the name of that?
Slideshow.
No, what did you?
The PowerPoint.
PowerPoint was very nice.
It's a slideshow. That's
the slideshow. Yeah, it was
very
fun.
nice. Yeah. Well,
So, oh, you're a soldier now. You went from being a dinosaur to a soldier. All right.
Soldier.
Yes, sir.
Ooh, all right.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you all for coming. Jerry, it was a delight to see you. Brian, Baruch, Brenda, and Mark, nice to see you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Yesha, Pat.
You got the invitation. Happy Purim.
Happy
Happy
Purim,
Purim.
Purim Sameach.
Love you, Mom.
Bye, Pat.
Love you, Pat, even though we can't see you. I know you're there.